In this video, we are talking about something which influence our project. A project manager may not be able to control these influencers, but project manager need to take care of them in order to run the project effectively. And we can categorize these influences in two categories. They are called enterprise environmental factor and organization process assets. From a PMP exam point of view, you should keep in mind all the processes which comes in your project management body of knowledge will take consideration of these two factors. Since I can't ignore them, they exist in the environment. So enterprise environmental factor could be internal and external, and organization process assets are always internal because this is something organizations learning. They can be categorized under process policies and procedures or the corporate knowledge database. So before we understand OPAs or organization process assets, let's spend some time talking about enterprise environmental factor. The project exists under an environment. And my project management approach has to take care of the constraint which environment puts on me. The environment could be, the influencing environment could be internal, it could be an external. Availability of a particular type of skill in the country is an external environment. Availability of a particular type of skills inside the organization is my internal environment. The government regulations which makes me take mandatory off on every Sunday is an external environment. The organization making me take off on the third Saturday because it's an organization approach to run the company is my internal environmental factor. Now, if you look at little bit more details in an internal environmental factors, they are reflected in the form of organization culture, structures and governance. Now, culture is a difficult term to explain. It is something which is not stated, may not be written, but exhibited by the people who live in the organization. Do you have a culture where people can be asked for their work directly, or it has to be done in a little bit polite manner? It's a culture. Now, if you are working in an organization where it is not expected to ask direct accountability to individuals, you may need to change your approach when you do the project management, when you plan the communication as you go forward. And this is something given, you can't change it. And that's why it's an environmental factor. It puts a constraint in your project management. It limits your options. Similarly, the structure. The organization might be structured in a very strong functional way, and some of the organization might be structured in the matrix way where there is always two people to report to. You need to consider those complexities in account when you design your project management approach. When you do your project management processes, you need to take care of the power equation the structure brings to your project. And the governance is the way of running the organization which ensures that the power can be influenced on individuals, the rule can be enforced on individuals. So what kind of a governance structure, what kind of a reporting mechanism the organization puts also limits your options. The geographical distributions. Now, you might be working in a project where your project teams are distributed in 5 continents. It's an environment, you need to take care of it. And you may not be able to influence it. He says, no, from tomorrow onwards, this company should operate from one geography. So distribution, facilities, resources, infrastructure you have. The organization may have a multi-story building where all the people are working from. The organization may have small offices distributed across 100 places from where they are working from. The organization may have their own private cloud. The another organization may not have the private cloud. They have to work with some public facilities. So this all puts some limits to you. Information softwares. Many times you start as a project manager, you need to compile your information in a particular project information system. They might say that in our organization, all projects should be using system X, system Y for risk reporting, system Z for defect reporting. So all the information technology softwares which has to be there, leave approval systems. So they put all internal environment to you. Resource availability, employees capability I spoke about. Now you got a fair idea about internal environment, and it's easier to visualize external environment. External environments are more like market conditions, social and cultural influences. If you are running a project in India, you need to take care of Indian context, Indian policies, Indian government laws, Indian financial information which is available in the country, the type of institutions are there, the engineering colleges are there, the type of talent pools are coming out of it, the physical environment, the weather in that particular country. So something which is beyond the influence of the organization, but it limits your option. You can't just change the education system of the country to get more talented human resource. You can't do that. You have to live with what you get. So in a summarization, these external environmental factors could be internal to the organization or external to the organizations, primarily limits your options. They are something which put a constraint. You can't ignore them. They exist. You need to work with it. You can't influence the external environmental factors because they are coming from outside. In some cases, you may be able to influence the internal environmental factors. Like by the passage of time, you may be able to create more skilled manpower in the company because in the projects also they are learning something. And that learning may go to the organization back, and in future also that learning will help other projects since you build that capability. But in general, from a basic point of view, this is something project managers should consider while planning the project, and they limit your options. Organization process assets. Now, organization might be in existence for multi-years, and when you are running this project, you are not doing this project work in the organization first time, or people must have run the project before. Now, how organization build themselves as a learning organization where they preserve the learning which is coming from previous projects, the industry experience, and how they compile, how they create some procedures, templates which can help the upcoming project teams to get started fast, something that falls under organization process asset. So it is more like a support system. It's a knowledge base which has been built based on the experiences project managers had. This is something which helps project manager to move forward. Now, if you are doing a risk identification and you have some template which tells you that in our organization, these are the 5 types of risk which usually need to be considered for the project. This is a checklist. This is a questions. If you ask these 20 questions to yourself and your project team members, there is a high probability that you will discover risk related to your project. Now, these things are called organization process assets. This questionnaire was made by studying the multiple projects, and even your project may end up contributing it at some point in time, but primarily you use it to get your work done faster. So it is something which is supporting you. So primarily it can be categorized in 2 sections: process, policies and procedures. So process of documenting something, process of doing minutes, process of reporting risks, process of policies for doing some kind of changes, policies of informing to the stakeholder, policies for taking approval for travel. So those kind of things which gives you some support, procedures, specific details of doing some work are something documented in organization process assets. Now, for all your initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control and closing, you may have a specific templates, specific guidelines to help you to get it done. So if you are in an engineering department, you might be having good practices for your engineering work, good practice for doing some installation, good practice for doing some type of testing. All those are coming from organization process assets. So if I have to test, I can look at that this is my organization process asset and now I will do testing. And since this provides that support, all the project management processes take this as an input. I just don't start thinking about, oh, there is a risk now, how should I document it? The first preference is my organization process asset tells me this is usually we document it. Okay, you want to add something more, take take that approach in your project management plan, but you start from somewhere, and that is coming from organization process asset. The final thing, the another thing which organization process asset contain is knowledge bases. So estimation data, lesson learns, which is coming from the previous thing. So the difference between knowledge base and templates is as an output of all the learning, and which is more specific to get used. You can just pick them up and get started. Whereas a knowledge base is a collection of information which you can process and you make some sense for your project work. You may want to learn about a project which was done for the similar client and in the similar market, so that you get a good idea about the type of challenges you may face as you move forward. So that part is also coming under organization process assets. We have been teaching project management for a while, and I do find people get confused between the difference between enterprise environmental factor and organization process assets. Though it looks very clear that factors which are coming from outside or maybe inside the organization are EEF, enterprise environmental factor, where our knowledge bases and everything which is coming from inside is organization process asset. But many times the internal part of EEF and the internal part of organization process assets confuses the test taker. My simple take is the enterprise environmental factor you can't ignore. You can't think of that I can bypass it. If something puts a constraint on you because it exists, it's an environmental factor. If something provides support, now you may have a template to report minutes of the meeting, but you may end up sometimes skipping it. How does it matter? Or you may want to modify it. How does it matter? Or you may not want to use it. You may follow some process. Few people may have some non-compliances, but you can do that. You may have a checklist for helping you to follow a good engineering design. But what if you don't do it? You can still design it. Definitely following organization process asset will make you fast. And it is not good. The quality assurance team may point it out that you have been not following it, but still you can do it. But if you don't have a one skilled developer in your organization, you can't get away from that fact. If you have to use a particular system and you can't get your project started till the time you report it in a particular project management system, it's an environmental factor. So whenever you face a question and you get confused between enterprise environmental factor or organization process asset, see that is it putting a constraint or is it helping me from my own learning, internal learning, to get me faster in my project management. If it is getting you faster in the project management, helping you and coming from internal knowledge, it is organization process asset.